He was right around 20 years old and doing what most 20-year-olds do on a Friday night, hanging out with his buddies and drinking a little too much. And they had this brilliant idea that they would go harass this local woman who claimed to be a fortune teller. Now you got to have a little bit of the backstory. He was raised by his widowed mom. His father died when he was very young, and even though his mom wanted him to join the church and go into ministry, he decided instead that he would help support the family by, at the very young age of around maybe 14, 15 years old, helping out at the local barbershop and learning how to cut hair. Now, this led him to hang out with some people that shouldn't have been hanging out with, especially at an influential and young age like that. And so fast forward a few years, and here he is about to get in a whole lot of trouble. So him and his buddies go find this woman, and they begin to harass her about her predictions, and actually they're being pretty cruel and even kind of pouring liquor on her and taunting her. And in the midst of all the chaos, she points right at Robert Robinson and says a few words that'll really cut him to the core and change his life forever. She says, "You will see the lives of your children and grandchildren." Not much of a statement from a fortune teller. A lot of them could probably say that, but something about those words stuck with him. And Robinson just couldn't shake it. They got under his skin. And for the next few years, he kind of like meditated on. He couldn't let it go. And so much so that not long after that, there was a preacher in town that was offering sermons that were getting the people stirred up and really was causing a lot of Christian revival around. And Robert Robinson decided to show up to one of those meetings. And so he actually listened to the famous preacher, George Whitefield, who gave a sermon about repentance and changing of your ways and following God as the only true hope in the world. And Robinson did. That day he gave his life to Jesus. He turned over his life to God. And not only did he commit himself to a new way of life, to no longer partying like he had before, but he also committed himself to the hope of his mother, to Christian ministry. And actually, he would become very well known as a local pastor, as a preacher, and most famously, as an author. Robert Robinson lived hundreds of years ago, but he's most famously known for his poem, put to song now, "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing." You might know the words, maybe you don't, I don't know. The opening stanza goes something like this: "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, tune my heart to sing Thy praise." But it's the last stanza that's always gotten my attention, and the one I want to meditate on a little bit today. It goes like this: "Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it, prone to leave the God I love. Take my heart, oh, take and seal it for Thy courts above." Prone to wander, Robinson said. I'm sure he was reflecting on that time of his life when he was wandering from God. Prone to wander, he says. I feel that. I'm prone to wander. Maybe you can tell. I've been wandering this morning a little bit. I'm actually out at Don Robinson State Park, covered in cobwebs now, but I'm out here at Don Robinson State Park, wandering on one of the glorious trails here. We are, in our nature, we are just prone to wander, aren't we? It's built into our DNA. I find myself wandering in trails all over the place. I love exploring new places, and I'd encourage you to come out here. This is a state park that's just south of Eureka, Missouri, on the outskirts of St. Louis. It's an awesome place. My family comes out here at least a couple times a week and hikes these beautiful, wonderful trails. But I wanted to share a message about wandering and kick off this whole summer-long series we're going to do on wandering from this spot. And it's such a gorgeous morning to do that. In our heart, in the core of who we are, there's something about our humanness that leads us just prone to wander. If you remember the opening story of God's relationship with humanity described in the book we call Genesis, in the first book of the Bible. There's a story about God creating this beautiful, lush garden, and He hedges it in on all sides, and He drops Adam and Eve into that spot. And they are to flourish in that location. He says, you can eat, there's these two trees, and He says, you can eat from anything you want in the whole garden, and if you eat from this specific tree, the tree of life, you will just live abundantly. You will be completely dependent on me for all of your source of life. But there's another tree that you can't eat from. It's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, or as I like to call it, the tree of moral choice. It's the tree of maturation, right? Of being a mature person. And if you eat of that tree, there's going to be consequences, because all of a sudden, and the serpent gets to this, all of a sudden you will then have the ability to know and decipher what is right and what is wrong. You will have moral choice. And of course, in that great moment, that great ironic moment, the first one of moral choice, Adam and Eve eat of that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and they become like God, able to discern the difference now between what is good and, unfortunately, what also is evil. They're able to choose for the first time which one. They can no longer eat from the knowledge, or eat from the tree of life. And so God banishes them from the garden, and He sends them out to be restless wanderers. But it's actually the next chapter, chapter 4, that we don't talk about enough, that I want to pick up in, because it's the story of their first sons, the first humans that are actually living out of the consequences of that choice. And this is from Genesis chapter 4. And Adam lay with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. And she said, with the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man. And later she gave birth to his brother Abel. Now Abel kept the flocks, and Cain worked the soil. In the course of time, Cain brought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord, but Abel brought fat portions of some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering He did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Then the Lord said to Cain, why are you so angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you don't do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must master it. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, let's go out to the field. And while they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. That's the first major consequence of the choice of good and evil. And Cain chooses evil. He chooses to wander from God. He chooses a life that is displeasing to God. He causes chaos and hurt and pain and brokenness. And it's the first major moral choice, living in this wandering world. And then the Lord said to Cain, where is your brother Abel? I don't know, he replied. Am I my brother's keeper? And the Lord said, what have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are under a curse and driven from the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its crops for you. You will be a restless wanderer on the earth. And Cain said to the Lord, my punishment is more than I can bear. Today you are driving me from the land, and I will be hidden from your presence. I will be, listen to this, I will be a restless wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. It's the consequence of his choice. He chooses to displease God. He chooses an activity that hurts God's heart, and he wanders far from God. And he says even, I will be gone from your presence, and I will be a wanderer with no place. And whoever finds me, they're going to kill me. I am going to get the consequence of the choice that I made unto someone else. And I don't know, we get to this place, don't we? I don't know where you're at in your spiritual journey, but it is so easy to wander from a relationship with God, to just slide into the ways of the world around us, to slide into anger, to chaos, to evil, to allow one little bad choice to lead to another bad choice, to lead to another bad choice, and all of a sudden you find yourself just wandering restlessly, waiting for the pain to come to you that you have inflicted on others. Prone to wander. Lord, I feel it. Prone to wander. But here's the message, and it is right here in the rest of this verse. But the Lord said to him, not so. If anyone kills Cain, he will suffer vengeance 7 times over. And the Lord put a mark on Cain, so that no one who found him would kill him. So Cain went out from the Lord's presence, and he lived in the land of Nod, east of Eden. But don't give up yet. Listen to this part. And Cain lay with his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son, Enoch. Why does that matter? Cain thinks God's going to abandon him forever, and he marks. God says, no, I'm going to mark you so that you are still protected by me. And even, remember this, he even allows Cain to establish a city that he will see the lives of his children and his grandchildren. See, no matter how far you've wandered, that's what Robert Robinson had to figure out. No matter how far you've wandered from God, he has not forgotten you. He will not let you go. He will not let you be so easily lost. He wants you, no matter where you are, to turn back to him. And so today, as we wander around here a little bit, and it's a beautiful spot, this creek and a little running water, but as we wander here a bit, I wonder if you won't take a step. I don't know where it's at for you. Maybe you've just been kind of wandering from church, and you just need to take a step back into the doors and be with the people that God called you to be with. Maybe you've been wandering out in your own abyss of chaos and just partying with the boys all the time, and God's saying to you what he said to Robert Robinson, it's time for your life to have meaning and significance. You're going to see the lives of your children and your grandchildren. Whatever it is, I want you to know today, no matter how far you have wandered, God still loves you, and he still wants you back. He has not forgotten you, and he doesn't want you to remain lost.